All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Unbiased America Live, the 44th edition of Unbiased America Live, and the show that has gone nowhere so far. And Grant is cooking bacon in his kitchen. Can you show everyone your oven mitt? Not the baster. He's got his oven mitt and his bacon. I don't know why. Why would you need baster for bacon?
These are tongs, and I'm making bacon.
Oh,
Hey, I got the same tongs.
Wow. We learned something new. You've heard it here, folks. Kevin and Grant have the same tongs. That's obviously that's Kevin Ryan in the middle. We just talked about Grant and his bacon obsession, bacon and guns. I mean, geez, the guy is trying to be some conservative Bible-thumping GOP member on steroids over there. And then we also have Michael Lee, who is back with us this week, and myself, Will Riccadella. I want to start off the show, obviously, with talking about New York. Donald Trump won his home state of New York, which obviously means he's the next president of the United States. If you're to watch Fox News and some of the other networks, that's apparently what you would think. Also, Fox Business, they've already crowned him the winner. And also, now John Kasich came in second, so that means he has legitimacy in the race, even though he's won only one state. And Marco Rubio, a guy who dropped out 2 months ago, still has more delegates. Kevin, can you tell us what President Trump's first 100 days are going to look like?
Oh, as the president?
Yeah,
well,
since he's won already.
According to the Boston Globe, there's going to be mass riots. We're going to have people fleeing the country, and the wall's going to get built, and there's going to be a rebellion in the military. I mean, they actually wrote a version. They called it satire, but it was a front page of their newspaper that supposedly said what it's going to be like. And apparently it's just going to be, mass mayhem and cats and dogs living together. And
it was awful satire. It was a bad attempt at satire.
It was horrible. It was freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, but you had Trump win New York. Everybody expected that for a couple of weeks. Everyone knew that Cruz wasn't going to perform well. I think that Cruz's only mission was to get him to win below 50%. That didn't happen. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from New York. I know that wasn't going to happen. My folks are GOP members, but they're not conservatives. And actually, they voted for Cruz because my family just does not like Donald Trump.
No, can I tell you just for the rest of the panel that we are sick of your New York values?
Yeah, I know. They are pretty liberal, actually. I mean, if you knew me personally, but I try to force my religion on everyone else, like Ted Cruz is going to do when he wins the presidency. Does this worry you guys? Any of you guys? Grant, are you worried? If Trump, who would you rather have, Clinton or Trump, if you had to pick one?
Here we go.
Hillary Clinton, hands down, Hillary Clinton. And
you want Hillary Clinton?
No, well, yeah. You see, it's because I'm an authoritarian. And I really want Hillary Clinton to become president. No, but Hillary Clinton, she's the establishment. She's going to be more Bush doctrine foreign policy, big government, liberal spending.
Donald Trump has a better foreign policy, I would argue.
I'm not saying that one is better. I'm just saying Hillary Clinton is predictable. You know that what you're going to get out of her.
Are you being serious? Is this sarcasm, or are you actually being serious?
I'm dead serious. If you
That's not a bad point.
Between Trump or Clinton, I'm choosing Clinton every time. She's not going to be very anti-trade. I don't think she's going to be as anti-market as even Obama was, really. And her foreign policy, it sucks.
Okay, enjoy your helicopter ride in February, buddy.
But yeah, all right, guy. Okay.
Hey, but wait, Kevin, you know this.
Kevin, are you voting Jeb Bush still, or how does that work? What happened?
Nope. Ron Paul, big comeback, comeback.
But Kevin, you make a decent point here. Doesn't Trump, even with the tariffs, have a better tax plan than Hillary Clinton?
The tariffs scare me. That's the one legitimate thing about Trump.
Yep.
None of his other stuff scares me at all. But because it's become such a populist issue, and you actually have people on both sides of the aisle now talking about tariffs and fair trade and all this other nonsense. Yeah, I think that could actually get done. So on the one hand, I would never vote for Hillary, but on the other hand, that is the one thing about Trump that scares me.
How about this, Mike? I mean, everybody's talking about Trump winning New York. We all knew that was going to happen. But the New York Times reported a couple of days ago that if Cruz wins Indiana, it's going to make it incredibly hard for Trump to win the to get to 1237 because he's going to have to sweep California, and California is a toss-up right now. It is not a Trump state. So do you think going in without 1237 that helps Trump, or helps Cruz and hurts Trump? Or all
Yeah,
this momentum, the delegates will go for Trump.
there's nobody even close to the nomination aside from Cruz and Trump. And there's no way at the convention, unless he's so close to 1237 that he can collect a few unbound, that Trump's gonna be able to collect enough support on the second ballot. So Trump's only hope is to either get 1237 before the convention or collect enough unbound delegates to win on the first ballot. After that, everything is in Cruz's favor. And if he wins Indiana, this thing's going contested. And when that happens, I don't see Trump coming out of this thing with the nomination.
Now, the delegates tend to be political insiders, and I know that Kevin wrote about this before, and I think that a lot of the unbound delegates, which I think on the second ballot, about 59% become unbound, would switch to Cruz, which would give Cruz a win on a second ballot. Kevin, would you agree with that? That they would be more apprehensive to vote for Trump on a second ballot, the delegates?
Yes, I do. In fact, I am convinced that if he doesn't get it on the first ballot, he's not going to win. But that said, I mean, he is a deal maker. I mean, he's a clown in front of the camera, but in the back rooms, the man does know how to make deals. He's made some good choices by hiring some people who know what they're doing. I mean, so the campaign's been a mess, but at least he's brought in some people here at the end game to actually see if he can get some of those unbound delegates. And you know what? He doesn't need a lot of them. He's going to come close. He's probably going to be within 100 delegates, maybe within 50, maybe within 20. And if he's that close and he can't get that amount of unbound delegates, you know, he shouldn't be president, because he has a very good case to make that he does have the most votes, and that if the delegates don't, if he can't get a few delegates to support him, the American people there might be a backlash. Some like 70% said the one going into the convention with the most delegates should win. So even if you don't like him, I think there was a lot of people who think it would be fair if he made it.
Oh yeah, a lot of those people are Trump supporters who all of a sudden want to change, a plurality of delegates into a win, which doesn't mean that he won the majority of delegates of 1237. I think that one, that's a problem because everybody knows the rules here already. But let me get back to your point, Kevin, and say Trump wasn't running from the beginning as somebody who was looking to that didn't think they were going to get to the 1237 and win on the first ballot. He kind of alienated a lot of, like you said, he's a deal maker. But I think he alienated a lot of those delegates he may have been able to win before. Certainly conservative delegates with that disastrous couple of weeks he had before the primary he lost, was it the Wisconsin primary. Do you think he can make that up? I think he's really turned off a lot of conservative insiders, and obviously those that would favor an establishment candidate to a degree, because I don't think that they necessarily like Cruz very much either.
Well, that's the thing. When you say that a lot of these people are establishment, that's not actually correct. A lot of the delegates are they're sort of homegrown, they're grassroots, they're from the state level, they're not coming from Washington, D.C. And so a lot of them do sort of lean towards Cruz. I think they're more of a Cruz-type supporter, certainly, than a Trump supporter. Again, look at Trump's ideology. It's far more liberal than the Republican Party right now. So I think he's gonna have a tough time getting it on the second ballot, but he does have a shot to get some uncommitted candidates, and he's not going to need that many.
All right. Now, I want to know what really grinds my gears about Trump and Trump followers. And Grant, I don't know if you know this, but I mean, people are saying, "Oh, Colorado, that was there wasn't an election because Drudge had a headline that it was a voterless caucus," and I guess they're saying the same thing now about Wyoming. And it's almost as if these people, it's their first year, and kind of covering or going through or being interested in an election season, thinking that, I mean, that's just a flat-out lie. I mean, here, Trump won caucuses in Alaska, the same thing. He also won one in Kansas, that's the same thing, and the one in those islands, he won the caucus there, too. The process is exactly the same, but I don't hear anybody saying those were voterless and that those are corrupt. So a lot of these claims, but they're catching fire, and the media is pushing them. Do you think that there's a large portion of the media that really does like Trump, Grant?
Well, I mean, I think if you're in the media, Trump is a gold mine just for ratings. I mean, you air a Donald Trump video of him saying some ridiculous statement, millions of people are going to watch it. The ones who hate him and the ones who like him. So I think the media does favor Trump in the sense that his campaign having momentum benefits them just from a ratings perspective. But It's funny watching Bernie Sanders supporters have the same sort of reaction to what they call media blackouts, and it's that same sort of mindset of, well, the media hates Bernie and they love Hillary Clinton, but then Bernie Sanders does something that the media loves, and then they get some ratings. So it's for the media, it's just a ratings game. It's just who can be the most ridiculous person on the air and get us the most people to watch our channel at any given time. And for the Republican side, it's Trump.
I have a quick question. I saw this meme out today. It's a meme, so take it with a grain of salt, but I thought it was pretty funny. Bernie apparently is mathematically eliminated now, and there's a lot of Bernie fans that are just despondent besides themselves. Is this in any way accurate? Are we going to look at Bernie people moving over to Trump now? Because there is, like you just said, Grant, there is a bit of a connect between, isn't it though? There is a bit of a connect between those two delegates, at least insofar as they're not portraying themselves as establishment.
If I'm a betting man on this, I would say 10 to 25% of Bernie supporters would go Trump, just based on really trade and being an outsider. I mean, Bernie's not really an outsider, but they perceive him that way.
Well, it's interesting because they actually said that 30% of Cruz supporters will not vote for Trump, 30% of Trump supporters will not vote for Cruz. But interestingly, they did a similar poll that says 30% of Bernie supporters won't vote for Hillary.
Who's they?
People.
I know, but who did the poll?
What do I look like? Rain Man? I don't know.
Unbiased America, Kevin. You're supposed to know these things.
Rain Man. Probably from a Simpsons meme that I saw. I don't know.
No, look, and Kevin, to those polls, though, they always do that when they're hashing it out in the primaries. I never trust those. I get those polls, and to a degree, they have some truth to them. But once the general starts happening, everybody seems to forget about the animosity towards whatever candidate they disliked, except for Trump. I just can't drop the animosity, just like I didn't for Mitt Romney. But I had to support Mitt Romney. I don't know what I'm going to do with Trump. Any of you guys not going to support Trump?
I won't. I don't know if I would actually vote for Hillary.
Oh, if you vote for Hillary, that's worse than voting for Trump by a mile.
If you put a gun to my
I'll
head.
vote for Trump if somehow Sanders is the nominee. Then I'll vote for Trump.
Yep.
I mean, but Mike, where are you? You're in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Michigan's going to go blue.
Hey, Trump has a lot of support in this state, man. It's kind of crazy and embarrassing, but
that's true. Look, he shakes it up. I think he wins a lot of independents, and I think he wins a lot of disenfranchised Democrats, like we were talking about that some of the Bernie supporters might go over. I just think that I don't think the younger ones, but I think there's disenfranchised, to a degree, capitalist, business-owning Democrats. The Rust Belt Democrats, the moderate Democrats will vote for a Trump that have these perceived disenfranchisements from the establishment of their party, and specifically if Hillary Clinton's running, her negatives are really high with Democrats too. I mean, look at the Bernie Sanders supporters going after her. Any of you guys see that? I mean, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, yeah. Carl Gibson does it all the time.
Oh yeah, he really doesn't like Hillary, but watch him switch into general. Hillary will be the next coming of Jesus after Bernie loses. What do you think, Kevin? Do you think I'm right about those Rust Belt Democrats, those moderate Democrats?
Not necessarily. I mean, I did just get done saying that there's a poll that shows they might not vote for Hillary, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to vote for Trump. But I do think there are a portion of disaffected people in both parties, or who aren't even in parties, who right now are attracted to the populist campaigns of Trump and of Bernie, and I think you are going to see some of those people who might not have voted for any candidate actually come out and vote for Trump. So it's going to be really interesting. And by the way, I would say one of you guys made this point, and it's actually a really good point. It might have been you, Will. That
the market candidate?
Yes. Well, actually, that's not what I was referring to. But now that you brought it up, let's talk about that after.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up.
The point I was thinking about was you brought up the fact that if you're not a fan of big government, if you're not a fan of getting stuff done in Washington, you're going to want Trump, because Trump's agenda is probably not going to get passed. He doesn't have a lot of support on the left or the right for almost any of the things he's talking about. Whereas Hillary is the type of person who could push through a big government agenda, and Republicans have not done very much to stop some sort of big government reforms lately. So I think if you're really looking to make a vote and you don't like either person, Grant, you're just an idiot. You don't vote for the person who's definitely gonna be big government, who's definitely gonna push through things that are actually have a chance of happening. You vote for Trump, who's just gonna be a clown for four or 8 years and probably not get a lot done.
Yeah, but see, I think that Trump in a lot of ways is just as big government as Hillary. I mean,
could be, yeah, it could be.
Trade protectionism in a lot of ways is just as harmful to the economy as pushing a big government agenda through Congress. I don't see. I mean, to me, I actually think Hillary would probably be more pro-market than Trump would be in a lot of ways.
I totally disagree with that.
God, what's wrong with you?
I mean, I hate the tariffs too. I despise those
the tariffs alone. The tariffs alone, and to me, shuts down the entire economy.
The only difference I see between Bernie and Clinton is that Bernie's an out-of-the-closet Marxist, and Hillary Clinton's still in the closet. I see no difference, and I think that if Hillary gets elected, that she could get as much stuff done as Bernie would. Like Bernie would have just more radical thresholds for where he would want to go. Maybe it would be just a tad bit more radical, but to Kevin's point, I think that if Trump was in there, he could run on any party and he would just negotiate. I think that you would get the same thing with him or a Jeb Bush or a Hillary too. So I kind of think they're three similar candidates to a degree. Only insofar as Trump has a better tax plan, and I think he would try to move to reduce taxes. So we may get a little bit lower taxes than we would if you had Hillary or a Bernie in there.
Would you guys favor a move at the convention to have Cruz be the nominee, even if he falls short? Let's say he winds up needing 300 delegates. Trump needs 50 delegates, and they go to committee. Cruz ends up getting pushed over the top, and Trump
on a ballot,
on a ballot, like a second ballot.
Absolutely. If it's through the system and the rules, absolutely.
But you don't think that would have an effect on the American people? That would almost just.
Oh, I think it would have an effect. I think it would have an effect on Trump supporters that already don't know the system and are already decrying it as corrupt. Meaning that where were these people when Mitt Romney was winning, John McCain? I didn't hear them then, and now they don't understand the system. So that's their problem, to be honest. If they can't understand the system of how the primary works and they have a candidate in it and their candidate does not understand that system, I think it would be dangerous if he were to win just because he had a plurality of delegates. If you can't understand that system, how do you understand the Constitution? How do you understand how Congress works? That's terrifying to me. So and this is the system is set up specifically to protect against demagogues. So and a temporary a whim of emotion of the American people. Look, people are angry, and that's what Trump is running on. Bernie's running on Marxism. I don't know if Bernie's tapping into necessarily the anger, but more of an ideological anger. Trump's just whipping up anger. He's just stirring up anger and dissatisfaction with the establishment. So Bernie's a far more dangerous candidate. I mean, Bernie's literally the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. I mean, he's looking for a proletariat uprising. Trump is not that radical. I just see Trump as feeding on anger, and I think that's dangerous too, that people are voting on anger rather than principles. Mike, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much spot on. It's tough. I don't want to vote for Trump or Hillary, but I do disagree with Grant in that he would be less pro-market than Hillary. I think, like you said, we're going to, at least with Trump, we'd get lower taxes maybe. The tariffs are scary, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't have a problem with Cruz winning on a second ballot. I think you'll see a lot of Trump supporters who don't understand the system, which is the majority of them.
They've already proven that they don't understand it.
They're going to be upset. But if Cruz wins within the rules, of course I don't have a problem with that, and that's actually what I'm hoping is going to happen right now, and I think it might even be the most likely scenario.
So, Kevin, let me ask you this, though. Have you been watching much of the news, though, and how they've been covering these elections so far, the primaries?
No, I've been watching a lot of Hogan's Heroes lately.
I would actually suspect you, as living in Kennebunkport and a big-time Bush supporter and donator, that you would watch Hogan's Heroes. That seems to be what that circle they would like to watch, that and like West Wing or something.
It brings me back to the good old days of World War II when you knew right from wrong and everything.
True.
So,
That is a good point. But
no,
I mean,
of course I've been watching everything. Yeah.
what I think CNN has covered the primaries the best so
Me
far.
too. Me too.
You
Absolutely.
agree?
And
By a mile.
I hesitate to say this because, God, it was like a year ago when I despised CNN. I mean, everything they did about
Remember the Malaysia
Ferguson
Airlines?
and the riots and everything they were doing to basically create these narratives that have led to a lot of problems. Suddenly they turned around and they're actually doing a very decent job of covering this. Now there are exceptions. They have some of their on-air personalities that are like listening to nails on a chalkboard. But I love Wolf Blitzer. I've always thought he's underrated just in terms of being a guy who says it like it is, and I think they're doing a good job. Fox has just become so they have the blinders on, and it's become difficult to watch.
I think sometimes, to a degree, it seems they're in the tank for Trump.
Yeah, they are.
Would you think that too? I mean, I'm watching this thing going,
definitely.
This is the Trump network here.
And here's the other thing too that happened with CNN that I'm never going to forget because this was terrible. CNN reported live on air a report that sounded, and I was watching this live, that Ben Carson was dropping out of the race.
I saw that too.
That
yep.
news got distributed to the Iowa caucus goers by the Cruz campaign, rightfully so. And when it came out that Ben Carson wasn't dropping out, CNN turned it around and doubled down and blamed Cruz when they were the ones that made the mistake to begin with. That was not only cruddy journalism to begin with, they couldn't own up to their own mistake.
Good point.
So now it's almost unforgivable on CNN on that one. That was terrible.
I just think that I'm watching Jake Tapper, and he really ticks me off sometimes, but he's been doing a good job. And I just think asking, especially Trump people, probing questions, finally. It's like a love fest. Even with Megyn Kelly, you think she'd have a beef with Trump. The questions she's asking, I'm like, where did you get this question from? It's like the Lewandowski, the guy that can't keep his hands off people, sends their talking points. Well, I'm thinking, go ahead, Mike.
It was kind of tabloidish news that I read, but it kind of made sense. And there was a report that Megyn Kelly and the Trump campaign were kind of in cahoots because Trump has raised Megyn Kelly's profile.
Yeah.
All the attacks on Megyn Kelly's got way more popular because of this little feud with Trump. And I did read a report. I don't know how much stock to put in it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were in a little bit of a cahoots over this feud, raising both of their profiles at the same time.
Yeah, that's a decent point. And then that leads us into what we talked about yesterday, Kevin, which is the market candidate. That this guy is the market. First of all, they knew who he was because he's Donald Trump. I grew up knowing about him in the 80s and 90s, maybe because I was in New York. I remember the first report I heard of Donald Trump, it was his bankruptcies, which were in the early 90s maybe, or the late, we had that economic downturn at the time, and a couple of his businesses went bankrupt, and obviously he recovered. It was his businesses. Nothing happened to him. But, later on he did that show. What is that show called again? Apprentice. Yeah, so people knew who he was ahead of time, and that show was huge, and he had a large following on there, so people knew who Trump was, and they either liked him or hated him a little bit, before the race even started. And now it's really like a reality kind of series. That's kind of what he turned this race into, from a media perspective, that the media is compelled to cover him because people demand more Trump, and it's really just the market deciding on who gets covered, and that a majority of people want that spectacle. They want the show, as opposed to principles, as opposed to a government that adheres to the rule of law. They want to see a show. They want to see these people called names. Oh, the politicians are stupid, and they can't get anything done. The establishment is inept. Things like that. I mean, isn't that really what we're getting here?
But I think you're absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But in a way, I think the media has really been a bigger factor in creating this narrative than they used to in years gone by. In years past, a lot of the narrative was driven by sort of the evening news and just the boring, what the candidate said at his latest rally and so forth. Now there seems to be a concerted effort on the part of the media to use a man like Donald Trump to make an entertaining news show and to bring in viewers, and it's been working. I mean, they've been their ratings are through the roof. I mean, these news shows are going crazy
It's
with Trump.
unbelievable, and the money they've made is unbelievable.
And I did a graph, I don't know, a couple weeks ago that showed that if you look at the amount of money that the candidates have spent, you know, from the amount of money that they actually brought in contributions and spent on advertising and so forth, then everybody at the beginning of this, when it started, said it was going to be Jeb Bush because he had $100 million. You know, he had $100 million, and that's such a huge amount of money. He's just going to be able to just put ads in every market and just, you know, get his voice and his name and his image out there. But what people didn't see was the $2 billion in free coverage that Donald Trump got, and that dwarfs. I mean, second place was Hillary with something like 200 million or 300, 400. I don't want to say the number because I don't remember it, but he just dwarfed everybody else. So it's really a new game now. I mean, it's become who the media decide. The media has become the kingmaker. Who they decide to push is who becomes president.
I'm sure there's still people that don't know who Ted Cruz is. I swear there are people that don't know who he is yet. And when they do, their first reaction is, "Oh, I don't like Ted Cruz," because so many people at the media and politicians are like, "Oh, Ted Cruz is a bad guy." You know what I mean? I don't know. So people kind of have that that feeling about Cruz. I think wasn't one of the claims that Trump made that the establishment doesn't like Cruz and that no one likes Cruz? Isn't that supposed to be a good thing? Now it's a good thing. Then somehow it wasn't a good thing. Everything seems to be backward. That guy can say anything and get away with it, even when it doesn't make sense. Go ahead, Grant.
Peter King said he would drink cyanide if Ted Cruz.
I know.
Was that real? I thought that was like an Onion article.
No, that was real. It was sunny.
Well, Lindsey Graham wanted to murder him, right? Now he supports him.
Yeah. Now they're all terrified of Donald Trump.
Some of this stuff is truly fascinating, and the Trump supporters have I don't know, they're really bad. I thought the Paul bots were bad. They're just as bad. They're both really bad.
Here's
These
the chart.
sycophants.
Here's the chart I was talking about. I hope you guys can see this.
Yeah.
On one side, is it backwards? No, because you guys
no, it
told
works.
me I was backwards once, and I'm so worried now.
Kevin, I'm really impressed you know how to use that thing. I mean, I didn't know that they didn't have those until you were 80, but
Yeah.
I did it on a typewriter actually.
Well, I did the minutes on the evening. I did the minutes on the evening news from last June through April, and Trump had 1,000 more minutes than Cruz, who was next. So that's 1,000 on the nightly news networks: ABC, CBS, NBC. So
Yeah,
that's just
The coverage has
a
been
lot.
Trump with 2 billion or 1.9 billion. Second place is Clinton with 750 million. Sanders with a little over 300. Then Cruz, Bush, Rubio. I mean, it's ridiculous that the coverage has been so skewed in favor of, at least maybe not in favor of him, but he's gotten his face out there way more than anyone else.
Here's a question. Go ahead, Grant. I'm sorry.
Kevin, like I said earlier, it's when Donald Trump gets in front of a camera, he's going to say something ridiculous, and it's going to end up on TV, and people are going to watch it.
But is this the new thing that gets people elected?
It might be a function of their political support for Trump.
But now think about going forward. Is this what gets people elected now?
Oh, it definitely gets people elected, and it definitely influences the political views.
Is this the end of traditional campaigning?
Yeah.
But yeah, in a lot of ways, the 2016 election is a lot of ways the end of statesman campaigghting as we know it. I mean, this is just at this point, it's all I can take from it is it's been a lot of name calling.
That's standard, though. Name calling's pretty standard.
A lot of random scandals have popped up that have absolutely no bearing on anything.
The Cruz scandal with the
wife sleeping
What
around.
happened to that? That disappeared.
The presidential election is literally a children's fight at recess. At this point, I mean, what else is it? It's just.
I mean, look, it's
bickering over nothing.
They do get into name calling and everything else, but no one has acted as unpresidential as Trump has. I mean, some of the things he's done are you're just thinking, oh my God, can you please stop? The thing he did with was it retweeting Ted Cruz's wife's picture, and some of the things he's this one's a bimbo, that one's a it's a bit much.
I thought it was very telling at the end when you still had 6 or 7 candidates on stage. It was very telling that when they suddenly realized Trump was running away with it, they started using Trump tactics. And that's what I referred to before, which is, and you guys said, this is the end. This is a new paradigm in terms of elections. I think you're going to see a lot more of this, unfortunately.
Right.
I think that may have hurt Rubio.
No, you're right. All that stuff he did is unbelievably inappropriate for a presidential candidate. But people eat that shit up.
Yeah, but do you think anyone else but Trump could pull that off? You think if I think when Rubio started doing it, that killed him.
I don't think it matters. Like what Kevin said, this is a new paradigm. This is a new way of running for office. I mean, how long before congressmen start doing this in their district elections?
I don't see it happening on the Democrat side. I don't really see that happening to the degree on the Democrat side. So you think somebody, if they saw that working, would pick it up on the Dem side too? But I haven't seen it to that degree.
I mean, Democrats for years have been just calling people racist and sexist.
Well, yeah. Well, that's part of Trump's. That's part of Trump's allure.
That's Trump tactics. That's Trump tactics. Well, they've already been doing it. It's just now it has a label for it.
I just don't hear their candidates saying everybody's a racist and everybody's a bigot. I hear the people say it.
Not yet.
That's true. That's a good point. Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to say, I know I'm a broken record on this sometimes because we've talked about similar subjects about how everything's changing, and we've talked about it with social media before, and we're talking about it now with how the media covers elections. Things have not changed that much, and things aren't that ridiculous.
Right.
We had a time in this country where the Vice President of the United States and the Secretary of the Treasury were in a duel. Okay? Things are not that ridiculous. It's always been ridiculous. The printing press revolutionized how politics was covered. The radio revolutionized how politics was covered. It's not that odd today. Things like this have happened before.
And the Lincoln race was nasty. The one in 1800 was really nasty.
Populist rise. FDR was a populist. These things have happened over time, and different forms of technology have revolutionized how they've been covered.
Yeah, but think about 2020 when you're going to have Kanye West versus Trump.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, maybe that's possible, but this election is a result of anger, and people see the media as part of the establishment. So I heard someone say that, well, Trump gets a lot of coverage, but it doesn't count because it's so much negative coverage. The negative coverage helps Trump, just like if you get Paul Ryan in front of the country to say, I don't like Donald Trump. All these people that support Trump are like, good. I hope you don't like him because that's what I do.
Did the negative coverage help Mitt Romney?
This is a different kind of election, though.
That's right. That's what we're saying.
But this is
Mitt Romney cowered a lot. Mitt Romney cowered. That hurt him more. When he got negative coverage, he cowered. He didn't attack. Remember the Monica Crowley thing? When after Benghazi happened, he never went on the attack. He never displayed any plain speak or anger. They went after the money that he made, and he never came out and said, "Yeah, I made a lot of money. I'm an American. So what? You know what I mean? I saved people's jobs. I did a good job reorganizing businesses. What is the big deal?" He never went at things head on. He kind of just cowered and tried to run away from it, just like the establishment has always done. It was part of that type of campaigning that led people to this. That they had a hunger for this plain speak and populism. What I want to ask you guys though is that I don't really hear much about is why is Hillary Clinton winning minorities? I mean, you'd have a lot of these white leftist liberals would tell you that the white patriarchy, the capitalists, are stealing the labor primarily of minorities. So you would think that with all of this information out there, definitely in the academy, that most of these minorities would support Bernie. They would support this, this workers' revolt. Why are they not supporting Bernie Sanders, Kevin?
New England liberals have not done well since basically since Kennedy. I mean, they haven't garnered the support of the base. I mean, 90% of African Americans vote Democrat.
Why can't Bernie win them in the primary?
Because he's from one of the whitest states in the country. I just think it's a matter of race at this point. And I think that people look at Hillary and they see that she's more, I don't know, she's not from the old white boys club. And I to be honest, I'm not saying I agree with this, but that's just the way I view it.
Do you think it's but remember Clinton was crowned the first black president?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Do you think it's the hangover from Bill Clinton?
Yes, exactly. And before Barack Obama, they really did turn to to Bill Clinton as somebody who spoke for them. Not necessarily. I don't agree with that, but it was a narrative that worked, and I think it's probably still working.
So they don't agree with the Academy then that white capitalists are stealing their labor. I mean, Hillary Clinton won't go all out and run to as a complete and total leftist that she is, like Bernie Sanders does. Do you think a lot of these minority people don't think that they're being robbed, or that it's not the rhetoric? I don't know, that they're not buying the rhetoric of Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders, all his supporters are white. I mean, is a lot of it white guilt maybe? I don't understand.
You know what? What's interesting is that Bubba has come out and has really had a bit of a battle with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, I remember it was a week or two ago, and he engaged them on they were heckling him, and he really went after them. But they're equal. They went after Bernie a lot too at the very beginning. Remember the two ladies charged on the stage, and Bernie was just like a deer in the headlights and didn't know what to do, and so he just walked off stage as the Black Lives Matter people were up there, and he just looked so ineffectual. But at the very least, you have somebody who has a background in a Clinton family background that has a history of at least being supported by minorities and supported by African Americans. So Bernie doesn't have that history.
What do you think, Grant?
Well, this is what kind of I was thinking about this the other night. If you look back in history at civil rights movements, Black Panthers, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, a lot of those groups were infiltrated by Marxist communists, right? Especially the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa.
The Black Panthers too.
The Black Panthers in the U.S. is probably as far left communist as we went. And to me, I sort of expected that when Bernie first entered the race as a leg up for him in a way. And I know that he was in a lot of like the MLK rallies and things. But as I watched his campaign developed, I realized that he wasn't selling the traditional Democrat, liberal, sort of like neoliberal philosophy that is of like LBJ in that era. And then it kind of made sense. But yeah, I wasn't really. At first, I wasn't sure how the African American community would fit into that movement, because you had like I said, the anti-apartheid groups, and then here we are today with this new Marxist of ours.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. What are you laughing at, Kevin? I'm getting feedback from somebody. Grant, did you get a new mic or something? Your mic sounds good.
I did. It's this little guy. It was. It was made by some poor people in China for 20 cents a day. See, under Donald Trump, this would be a $30 freaking microphone. It was $6 on Amazon.
It's a really good mic, but it's giving me a ton of feedback. But it's not now. No, this is an interesting question because look, I know coming from academia that a lot of these leftist teachers break these movements down, and they kind of mesh them with the Marxist movement, with tearing down, the capitalist constructs, and all these facts and data that we use when we talk about economics. That's all created by capitalists so that they could steal the labor of minorities and poor people, and that they're really trying to coalesce that movement into like the Bernie movement, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And I don't have a valid explanation for it. I think Kevin touched on it a little bit. But I mean, I just like more info to figure out why they're not saying, yeah, we do need to take more money from those people at the top that are oppressing us. That's Bernie's message.
Well, there's parts of Bernie's message are missing, though. I mean, religion. There is no religious message in Bernie's campaign, and I know that. No, there isn't. But over time in the '90s and so forth, they certainly did a lot more in terms of going down to Southern churches and meeting with Southern blacks, and I think it still exists in terms of people remember that and they think of them in a certain way that they don't think of Bernie.
And I think that, like I said, Hillary Clinton is still preaching that neoliberal message, whereas Bernie has moved so far left that an old white dude's not going to be able to pitch that to minorities.
It's funny.
You know
This
what
is
I mean?
actually a really interesting point because can the far left white liberal really run an effective campaign ever
I'm
again?
surprised they can because, like I said, like a lot of the civil rights movement was rooted in this kind of rhetoric.
To me, Hillary Clinton's a far left
rich
liberal.
rhetoric.
To me, Hillary Clinton's a far left liberal to me too. I can't see.
But
I mean,
let's put far left in perspective. You know what I mean? Like to us, she's far left, but
Yeah.
you know, to a black voter who's been voting Democrat their whole life, she's not
Right.
that far left.
Right. You know, those are good points, and I thought about those. I'm just it's hard to wrap my head around something where intellectuals have been trying to influence for a number of years, and it hasn't caught on. Not to the degree where they understand that Marxist, those solidarity amongst those movements you mentioned, like the Black Panthers and La Raza and all these other groups, never kind of picked up steam with the Marxist movement, and it hasn't. And it's telling us that they're supporting Hillary. It hasn't picked up steam that they're not supporting that Marxist in Bernie Sanders, who is an avowed Marxist. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The man's a Marxist. I would argue that Hillary's a Marxist. I mean, their rhetoric is Marxism. Go ahead, Mike.
Democratic socialism, Will. Democratic socialism.
Yeah, Democrat. So you're at the whim of a majority. It's okay to steal your stuff if everybody says it's okay. You see,
That's it.
Truth's a consensus. What's this, Mike?
Can you see that closely? See where Clinton is on this chart? She's pretty damn close to Bernie. She's not that far from all the way to the left.
Right.
I mean,
I agree. She's moved further left over the years, obviously, since she was elected state senator in New York. She's gone further left. I mean, most of politics and political discourse has moved further left.
Yeah, she was the second most liberal person of the campaign this year. Chafee O'Malley Webb. I mean,
she was more. They had her more liberal than Chafee and and O'Malley. O'Malley's a big time lib.
But listen, this is actually a work of a website. I don't remember the name of it, but that puts a lot of effort into reading the candidates' positions and parsing everything they've ever said, and then sort of plotting it out mathematically and figuring out where they fall in this chart. So yeah, this is actually a pretty good chart, and it does show you something that most people might not think. Certainly Grant, the idiot there on the left corner, probably doesn't realize just how liberal Clinton is.
Now, another question. It seems that you're getting... Look, Ron Paul had a sycophantic following in 2008. I mean, he'd had disciples. These people were not supporters. They were well beyond that, and we still see that. Trump is getting the same thing, and it seems that Ron Paul had really discontented, disenfranchised young people that felt the system was screwing them, and to a degree it is. And Ron Paul tapped into that long before Donald Trump has. Do you think it's because Donald Trump had a bigger name and he can appeal to more people that he's tapped into a larger kind of cult of personality following? I don't think everyone that follows Trump is a cult of personality, but he has some adherents or acolytes, much like Ron Paul did. And I'm not saying that everybody that supported Ron Paul was an acolyte, but what do you? I mean, they really did have these sycophantic followings. What do you guys think? Is it because Trump has a broader, a bigger name in the media, and he was able to get that type of following? Mike, you agree?
Yeah, I think has a lot to do with that. Trump has, he's in your face. He's gonna get a lot of coverage. He's gonna say some crazy things, and don't get me wrong. Ron Paul said some crazy things, especially when it came to foreign policy or monetary policy. But they were on policy. Trump is going to get coverage for just saying. I mean, crazy, completely off topic. He's got more gravitas to him.
But they protect, like his sycophants protect him, like Ron Paul sycophants protect him. Like everything Trump says is gold. Everything Ron Paul says is gold. No one questions it. No one brings it to the issues or policy. Go ahead.
Here's the difference between the Ron Paul bots and the Trump bots. Ron Paul bots are very policy specific. And if you break from Ron Paul even a little bit on that policy, they're not going to support you. Whereas Trump doesn't really have a straightforward, predictable philosophy. So he can have a huge tent of people.
Right, gotcha.
Say whatever he wants,
Good point.
It's more about him. Whereas with Paul, it's like, yeah, it's a cult of personality almost, but
on principles.
It's very specific philosophy, and you can't veer from it. And that
Right.
I think that's maybe the bigger difference between the two.
Go ahead, Kevin. I know you want to get in on this one.
Yeah, I do. I just want to say to Mike, it's really important to have working smoke detectors in your room. You don't just, if it starts going off, you don't just rip it off of the wall and leave it hanging there.
And have you ever tried to cook a steak with your smoke detector right next to the kitchen? It's impossible.
No, I'm just pointing it out. You're my friend. I don't want you to die in some ISIS burn cage. So.
Just because Kevin's rich, he thinks everyone else is rich. Can fix all the
Kevin,
holes
not
in
all
our
of us can afford multiple smoke detectors. Okay.
You know they're like
Right.
$4 a piece.
Kevin
Thanks-
probably has carbon
thanks to free
monoxide
trade.
detectors
Yeah,
too.
why don't you
Of course
stop
I do.
imposing your institutional elitism on me, okay?
Right. You see that? I may die of a carbon monoxide poisoning because I don't have enough money to get one. Isn't that sad?
No, that's called Darwinism. So
You are a social Darwinist, you capitalist pig. You are a Bush supporter. I knew it. Oh, but these are some interesting topics that I don't think get much coverage or coverage at all on the media. I mean, Fox News it seems is in the tank for Trump. I don't know if it's because they hate Ted Cruz that much, but it doesn't seem like they're a fan of his.
I think there's a backlash. I think there was a backlash against Fox News back when Kelly went after Trump early on in that first debate, and I think they got hurt. I mean, you suddenly had.
Think so, huh?
Yeah, I think they got hurt, and
I agree.
And I think there was a backlash, and I think there was some backroom. I forget if it was Mike who mentioned there might be some sort of a deal between Megyn Kelly and Trump, but there was some backroom stuff that went on. I mean, if you remember, you had Bill O'Reilly, the face of Fox News, essentially imploring Trump to go shopping with him and get a beer or get a soda or something. I mean, it was ridiculous because they turned off a lot of their supporters when they went after Trump. Now, I'm not agreeing with the fact that they've turned it around and now they're kissing his butt. I'm just telling you that's what I think is going on.
No, that's a good point. I'm curious to see what happened to Glenn Beck's ratings and Mark Levin's ratings after they started to go after Trump. Rush Limbaugh hasn't explicitly endorsed anyone. Levin and Glenn Beck have. I don't know about any of the other national guys, but I would be curious to see what happened to their ratings because they haven't seemed to flip a switch to say, "Oh, I'm Trump now." Go ahead, Mike.
Really anecdotal, but up in my hometown, just way out in the country, but you pass it on the main road. There's this little shack, and there's a sign in front of it that says the Tea Party Evangelical Church, and on the sign it always used to say "The Truth Lives Here," and it said theblaze.com. Glenn Beck's website.
Yeah.
Now these people started becoming Trump supporters. They started sticking Trump signs out in front of that thing. And now the sign says "The Truth Lives Here," Infowars.com. It doesn't say The Blaze anymore. Now it's Infowars. So if you take that little anecdotal evidence with these people, Glenn Beck probably turned some people off.
I'm sure he did. These Trump support. Look, I see a lot of people that are Republicans say I have a business and China's stealing the jobs in my industry, and all of a sudden with some of these Republicans, capitalism now is that has traditionally been a system of profit and loss is now just a system of profits. Just protect my profits. Throw capitalism out the window. And I think the same will happen with Democrat business owners in general. That they'll say, look, China is taking all of the jobs. I can't compete with them, as if it's China's fault that we have high corporate tax rates, that we have minimum wage laws that are adding to labor costs, that we have so many regulations that have probably protected a lot of these. That government has probably protected some of these businesses to a degree. That we no longer have that free flow of resources within inner country or interstate. And now, you want them to have tariffs to protect whatever monopolistic competitive firms they have from even overseas. I mean, so you have these same things from business owners. Please protect my profits. Please protect my profits, voting based on their own self-interest rather than the principles of capitalism, of conservatism, of classical liberalism and constitutional law. I mean, you see a lot of this with some of these people. That's why they're so into Trump to a degree, is he's going to protect my business that I'm in textiles and China's taking all the jobs, and they're not blaming the right people. They're not blaming the state of California here, and we're losing jobs in downtown LA to China because they keep raising the minimum wage. It's killing them. just destroying the jobs here. So people don't see it as, my state is the problem or it's my representative. It's China.
I will say to that, I've talked to some Trump supporters who say, yes, we overregulate for all of these all the above reasons, but they still think that we need some sort of fair trade deal. And my thing is, okay, even if we repealed we repealed the minimum wage, we deregulated, lowered the corporate tax rates, I don't think we could even still compete with China, because I don't think that Americans would want to do that kind of labor for so cheap. And frankly, I don't want a bunch of dirty and dangerous factories scattered across the United States just because Americans deserve jobs. Like, well, okay, I don't want you working 18 hours a day in a factory where you could lose an arm. I mean,
well, if they had factories like that here, they would have to pay people an awful lot more in a free market to work there,
exactly.
And then you would have competition among.
Even in lieu of those laws, in a free
we did have things
economy,
like that, right?
Americans still would not want to compete with China.
We used to have factories like that, but capitalism largely made them extinct. That people trading off. Maybe you make 100.
But those are the kind of factories that you're going to see in developing labor markets, and really developing markets anywhere. Just as you did in industrial era Britain and America, and those factories eventually go away because of capitalism. And I don't think that people realize that these aren't just lost jobs that we necessarily want back. You know what I mean?
They don't go away. They don't necessarily go away. They go to wherever they can be most efficient, most productive, an area where they can actually produce products for the lowest cost and the highest quality. They don't necessarily go away. If the entire world had the same median income as Americans, you'd see just as many factories here as you would anywhere else. Yeah. It's all. I mean, it's economics, and the reason that there's this big disconnect between the people on the right who are supposed to be free market and supposed to be pro-capitalism. You see this big disconnect is simply because people aren't economically literate. They don't know that, they don't understand how jobs are apportioned. They don't understand why they end up where they end up. And they tend to blame people as opposed to simply the forces of the economy, as opposed to the forces. And yes, there is a whole lot of blame to go around in terms of bad government policies. But in the end, when your country has a median income that's 10 times higher than another country, the other country is going to take those jobs you don't want.
No, that's a really good point.
At the same point, though, it's the economic concept that no one understands is marginal benefit. So if you're living in Bangladesh and you have an income of $0 per day, and now here comes low-cost textile America Corp saying, I'll give you $1 a day to build this in these working conditions, are those conditions bad and unfavorable and, maybe a cost in some ways? Sure. But now these people are making $1 a day instead of $0 a day. And to the outsider who, like you said, has a higher median income, that's slave wages. That's bad capitalism.
And they're saying don't buy
the bowl of rice. Would disagree with you on that.
Yeah, they're saying don't buy products from Bangladesh. Now, what's that going to do to the Bangladeshi family who relies on that amount, that meager? I mean, it's not a lot of money, but to them it keeps them alive. What's that going to do?
But marginally is much more beneficial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If I get a 2% raise, that's like kind of an annual normal thing to keep up with inflation. If they go from $0 a day to $1 a day, that is hugely.
And what we do is
if I were to get an extra $1 a day.
The right never frames the issues properly. I mean, no one ever discusses the hubris of the left telling people what's good for them in these third world countries. It's almost as if they look down at them like, oh, they can't make a decision for themselves. They shouldn't work in that factory. That's just not right for them. I mean, you have some disinterested third party thousands of miles away telling this person how they should live their lives.
Do you remember when globalization? Do you remember when globalization sort of broke out in the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
And you remember the people that were protesting against it? They were all the wealthy white kids,
elitist liberals,
all wealthy white kids from Vancouver, and I mean, people who didn't understand that the globalization was going to be as beneficial as it had. Globalization has been the greatest source of sort of lifting people out of poverty in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm. See, when people hear globalization, though, they're not thinking global markets. I think some people, when they hear globalization, think like global government, as opposed to that there were incentives for China to lessen the state control over business. Not that they don't have state control over business, they do, but they had incentives in order to make money for the government, to lessen those incentives, and to keep people working, they had to give them something. You know what I mean? So they saw this as an opportunity, and it's fascism is what it is. It's giving these people, oh, you have this illusion, or that, you know, of owning your own property, of owning your own labor. But really, what we do is we're gonna give you crumbs, but we're gonna control it through regulations and heavy taxation. And that's kind of what you have, a move from communism to fascism. It's kind of a mesh between the two. They have state-owned industries and state-owned firms. But I mean, I think they've lessened the controls to give people this illusion to work harder, you know, as opposed to forcing them to work. But we need to get into our what is it? What is our little thing called at the end of the show? Winners and losers of the week. I don't know if you guys came prepared, but I came a little bit prepared. I don't know who wants to go first. Do you guys want me to go first? To give you a second.
Yeah, I got nothing.
You want me to go first, Grant? Mikey? All right. I'm going to say the loser of the week is Fox News, and their fawning love affair with Donald Trump is killing me. And specifically Greta Van Susteren, that show is horrible. What a horrible show. And she is the worst journalist I think I have ever encountered. She was clearly against Trump at one point. Now it seems like she's gone full Trump. So, you know, I don't know if there's anybody at Fox News that you can actually contend would support Cruz. I don't think there's one. I don't know if you guys know of any. Brett Baer is he is still the gem there at that network. I don't know who he supports. He asks the best questions. He never gets He questions even Krauthammer's ideology sometimes. He's easily the best one there. And then my winner is CNN, who's done a far better job lately of covering. I hate to say it. I really do. I never liked CNN. I always hated them. But they're doing a hell of a job here, and it bothers me. Go ahead, Grant. I know you got a winner.
You need to post that on Unbiased America to prove that you're unbiased.
I think I posted like an informal poll about it, and I said that CNN has been better. Yeah. And a lot of people either just, you know, everyone throws out, none of them are good. None of them are good.
Comrade News Network.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so my loser of the week is liberal billionaire Nick Hanauer, or however you say his last name, because he has said more stupid things about the minimum wage, and apparently if you double it, it will reduce the welfare costs that we have through taxpayers. Unfortunately, that has never happened in the history of the world ever anywhere, and I don't think it will happen if you do it again. Mm-hmm. My winner of the week is Peter King. He endorsed Ted Cruz by saying that he would take cyanide if Ted Cruz were to become the nominee. I think we talked about it earlier in the show, and that to me makes him a winner because it's just a great endorsement for Ted Cruz.
Can you do me one favor and just briefly explain to people how doubling the minimum wage would actually increase welfare payments?
Sure.
Can just quickly.
Yeah, so let's say that Will Riccadella works for $5 an hour at
I wish. Yeah,
he wishes. Let's just say he works for $5 an hour at the local fish cuttery. You know, he sits around cutting fish all day. That's why he smells so terrible. And
yeah, that's why.
And then the government gives him $10 an hour, so his effective income is $15 an hour because he's a leech on society. And then we make the minimum wage $15 an hour, and Will gets fired because he's useless, obviously. And now the federal government must subsidize his entire income instead of just a portion of it. So what happens is that people who get raises and people who get fired, at best, you have a break even on a fiscal effect. And if anything, it's negative, considering that a lot of people who, let's say single mothers who may earn a minimum wage, support a family, and thus, once they're fired, qualify for even more federal subsidies. So no, it does not reduce. It sounds cool though, and it's great for a meme, but it doesn't actually work.
Yep, that's a good one. Actually, that was a really great explanation, and all the things you said about me were true. Kevin, go ahead.
First of all, you weren't even listening to him. You never. Anytime you say something's a great explanation, you know that you weren't listening. So
No, I didn't listen to a single word of it. I heard my name a couple times.
But that's what makes you a good host. So credit to you.
Thanks. Thank you.
So the winner of the week, I have two of them actually, is Alexander Hamilton is going to stay on the $10 bill, which I think was a great idea because he was sort of one of the key architects in America's economy. And Harriet Tubman is going to end up on the $20 bill. It's taking the place of Andrew Jackson, who is getting a lot of bad press because apparently he killed a lot of Native Americans. And I think they weren't that bad of a move. You know, there's a lot of people that are angry about the changes to the currency, but I'm not one of them. The loser of the week, I have to say, is hands down Grant Phillips for saying he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
That's very good, Kevin. Those are really good topics. I didn't listen to a word of that.
I'm going to. I said if you put a gun to my head between Trump and Hillary.
I heard going to, but anyway, Mike.
Well, Kevin took my winner of the week, Alexander Hamilton. He gets the $10 bill. Although I don't celebrate Hamilton maybe as much as Kevin does. He likes we celebrate Jefferson, but we live in Hamilton's country, unfortunately. But he is the winner of the week because he gets to stay on the $10 bill. My loser of the week, though, also just for Kevin, is the Boston Bruins, who failed
I knew it was coming
again because they're terrible at hockey and they're losers.
And the New York Rangers will lose to the Penguins, which is another reason why my life sucks.
Dance, unlike the Bruins again.
What were you doing in what was it, Comerica Park? What were you doing in the
with your Bo Sox stuff?
Decked out in Red Sox gear and the Bruins cap and everything. I mean, you've made a lot of enemies there in Detroit. You might have to move.
It was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. I would have been embarrassed.
That's crazy. I lost the bet.
Anyway, for Grant Phillips there all the way to the left at We Are Capitalists, and Kevin Ryan, who's the grandpa of Unbiased America, and Michael Lee, the newest admin at Unbiased America, and myself, Unbiased America, just got 30,000 followers, and we have our website coming out next week. Please, keep up on that, and we will have Shaker's on next week, right? We have Muhammad Shaker coming on next week. Jack Hunter's been talking about him. He's getting big in the libertarian movement. So we'll have him on next week. Please watch next week, and thanks for watching again. We'll see you soon.